Lou Thesz faithfully defended his World Heavyweight Championship.
Rogers Strut.
Kowalski's got him right where he wants him.
Dory Funk Jr. wanting that World Heavyweight Championship.
10 pounds of pure gold.
Simon Felder's Dusty Rhodes has just become the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion.
Presenting the greatest organization in wrestling history.
We always deliver on our promises at the National Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah, was pretty hard, and look at what are you going to work now? Oh!
Hey everybody, it's Durger time. Thank you for joining me once again for another episode of Billy Corgan, Jeff Jarrett's somebody's NWA right now. We had a pretty decent show last week, and we had a build-up towards our first new pay-per-view. Obviously, we have this build-up between Ron Killings and Ace Austin. We have Johnny Power showing up. And, overall we're building up. It's a little slow of a build as we kind of build to our first pay-per-view, which is only 7 days away. So we have an episode this week for Power, and we have another one for our pay-per-view coming up. So, should go pretty well, and hopefully we can maintain what we're doing. We still haven't done much with our alliances, right? So we're still at a very bare bones. And we need to start looking at expanding, seeing who's available, seeing how we want to do it. Because remember, we've now changed this format. So with the new format now, what we're going to be looking at is a shared momentum. So when Hollywood, Philadelphia, Zero do well, we do well. When we do well, they do better. That's sort of the cyclical cycle that we're looking for. So we're going to want somebody that, can support us, and that would be an interesting addition. Obviously, with the Forbidden Door, a lot of those companies are now no longer eligible to join. Something like, I think, Impact, I don't think can, because they're part of the Forbidden Door alliance already. In fact, is there one that says no? It doesn't. It's kind of interesting. It's actually interesting that Impact's not part of that. Theoretically, we could join up with them, but I don't know if we necessarily want to. We have a lot of ideas that we have to kind of figure out here about whether where we want to align with. Like, do we want to do GCW, right? There's a lot of, and it's not necessarily going to be for talent. It's going to be for more building sort of a synergy between brands. So there's definitely options that we want to look at going forward. The other option is that we start spreading out and trying to build smaller companies and rebuild the territories, right? We could start to build smaller companies. I don't know how many you can have as a child company. Right now we have 2. So it's certainly an option that we could go in there and, add another one, right? We can, believe we just have to do it in investments. And we could go in there and produce a whole new company and use that as sort of a springboard into a new territory, right? I think it's investments, invest in a new company. And you could build one. It's expensive. It's not cheap. I mean, we have some capital, right? So, if we wanted to do it and be like, I want you to be 25, it would be $1 million. 15 would be 500,000. 5 would be 150,000. So, so there's options there, and we could be like, I want this to be our Mid-South brand, right? I want a Championship Wrestling from Austin, Championship Wrestling. We can kind of branch out that way if we wanted to. It's definitely an option as we kind of continue to try to build this up. But I don't think we're going to do that until we can get to regional, which we have a ways away, unfortunately. So if we look at this, we need 59 popularity in our home region. Right now, we're currently at 50. So 9 away. Not too bad, but definitely going to be something that we're going to take a while to get there. We also need 35 in either Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, or Mid-South, which I believe we qualify for, for all across the board. So it really is about boosting up that Southeast. I think we're going to just run shows in the Southeast until we get to that level. At least that is the plan. From our initial start, we haven't really made much movement, but we'll be able to kind of see how fast we're progressing after this pay-per-view. There's some other names coming in, as you can kind of see in here, that may be able to assist us in some way. And we also always can look at who is available, because one of the nice things about getting into this new updated database, which is what I was really hoping for, is that we have a lot of potential to grab people. I'm just going to point out like AEW, right? They should be most of these available to hire. We don't want anybody that is exclusive written, but I think this will show up and then willing to negotiate. So like we could grab Adam Cole, Andrade should be available. Brock Anderson, Daniel Garcia, Jay Lethal should be available. Moxley, I think, is available. So, I mean, if we want the money and to spend that money, we can do it. Nyla Rose is available. Not that inexpensive either. Pac. So there's a lot of new names that were previously locked out to us because of the way the old contract system worked in 2016. And when we moved over to the new system, this was sort of where we were stuck with. There were a lot of these were on exclusive deals. Now, a lot of people still are, right? There's a lot of wrestlers over there that are going to be in exclusive contracts. The other big exclusive contract giver, I guess you should say, the one that signed a lot of people, besides obviously WWE and New Japan, is like Ring of Honor. Now, Ring of Honor does have a good chunk of people available that we could pull in from that are on handshake deals. And most of that's because they basically had to rehire everybody, because I wiped this to simulate that hiatus, right? Now, I think, I don't know if I kept it in the game. The latest mod has a like devastating no way back. Oh no, I think I kept it. I might not have kept it. Actually, I might have lowered it. I think it's something ridiculous, like 10 million in the hole after the first couple of weeks to simulate that hiatus and that huge debt that Sinclair Broadcasting has. We made it a lot lower, but still big. In the event that we wanted to try to take it over, save it. I don't know if they would be interested. They're not in a bad enough financial position to accept this. Well, we'll see how they feel about that. They certainly have a lot of debt. So we're going to keep an eye on this, because it might be something that would be a good get. But they lost all of their talent, except for some bare essentials during their hiatus, and then we kind of restarted them to allow them to fill up as they wish and see what they can do. So we're going to be watching Ring of Honor closely, but that is the situation there. So let me know what we should do. Should we bring some of these AEW guys in? I mean, it feels almost like a cheat, but having like a John Moxley run might not be that bad of an idea. Certainly could be something that could help us. Now, before we get into the actual booking, someone had requested us to take a look at our creative, and I think it's a great idea. Let's look at what this has in store for us. So, number one, we got Ezekiel Crowley, aka Malachi Black, aka Tommy End, is our number one franchise player. New signing Johnny Power, though, big in our roster. Of course, we have Samoa Joe signed. Ricky Starks and Ron Killings are actually our top 5 franchise players. kind of an interesting group. Next big things are Big Swole and Akam, which, sure, hot prospects. Big Swole, Akam, Deanna Prusa, Warhorse, and Riho. Talk to Talk, of course, is Enzo, Eddie, Samoa Joe, Ricky Starks, and Thea Trinidad. Our showstoppers in terms of in-ring performance is Johnny Power, Pentagon Jr., Ezekiel Crowley, Thunder Rosa, and Ricky Starks. One of the reasons why I wanted to this update, is because I think they have Thunder Rosa in a much better position than we were playing around with trying to get her there before. Ring generals, obviously, Dax Hardwood, Cash, Chris Hero, Kingston, and Briscoe, Jay, are Who's Hot, Rossman Eric, Ace Austin, Ricky Starks, Pillman Jr., and Marshall Von Erich all have positive momentum. Brian Cage, Pentagon Jr., Samurai del Sol, and Sonia Baranato, not so much. And our hidden gems, people we should be looking out for: Megabyte Ronnie, MV Young, Jay Raves, Alex Sky, and Stallion Rogers. All kind of interesting. Megabyte Ronnie is kind of interesting that he would be on here, because I don't think, well, he's 12 in here. You know, what's he cost? His stats are not bad, I will say. Like, great acting work, microphone work. Let's, sure, come on in, $30. We could use you. Stallion Rogers, I don't know. I'm not familiar with Stallion Rogers, but apparently worked for NXT, Evolved, and IWA Mid-South. I don't remember. Currently working BLP and AAW. Has pretty good popularity, but skill levels not fantastic. Eddie Kingston, though. 120. We can bring them in. Oh, you are really strong arming me for $10 more? Okay. Not a bad idea. We can do it. Bring them in. Jay Raves has no familiarity with. Worked in Shine, has no popularity, and not great skill set at all. So I'm not really sure why we're getting pinged on this one. Might hold off on that. I don't know if we need that. Again, similarly, not really seeing our scouting level here a lot. Go with probably a Young Lion, but not seeing a lot of. It's going to take a lot of work to invest in. Something we could do and send them over to Championship Wrestling. Maybe we'll do that. Why don't we go ahead and we're going to be you're going to be extensively develop your skills. Because we could always use better hands in our women's division, and maybe we can send them over to one of our child companies to develop a little bit into. That might not be a bad idea. Start to build that out. I'm fine with that. Okay, so let's get on over to Power. Let's book our go home show for our first pay-per-view, Down But Not Out. A little mild pay-per-view. It's not going to be anything special, but it's going to give us a good baseline to see where we're at going forward in this save. Let's go ahead and get over to it. All right, we do have our contracts in. We'll grab them all. And let's go ahead and... Where's our new signing here? There she is. Okay. So, we should be able to send her away. Probably could send her to Sendai. It's an excursion, though. That takes a lot longer. But might not be a bad idea just to not have to worry about it. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll see if she can send an excursion out that way. Oh, you know what? She might not because she's independent. Yeah. So we'll throw her to developmental, and that will be fine. And then I think we're waiting on J Raves yet. We got Megabyte Ronnie. We'll see what he can do for us here. All right, no backstage incidents. There are some absent workers. Danhausen's still injured. Leo Rush working in New Japan America, and Samoa Joe is still out injured. We can medal. And who we want to medal with. Really should look at to see who has the best shot. I think professional often does not have a good chance. Lively usually does. So I could see, why don't we try to extremely high chance of failing. Not so much there. Extremely high chance of failing. A reasonable chance of succeeding. Always hard to know. So I would want her to be like with Mickie James, somebody that can kind of train her. Ramona Riot. Thunder Rosa. But having a friendship is never going to hurt. So let's go ahead and get on back up there. Why not? Swole and Akam did not work. We'll continue to try to foster that relationship. We are going to be in the soundstage. We're going to continue to just hammer in on Southeast is our goal. And we are just going to continuously kind of just bombard ourselves within that region to try to get to that regional status. That is the goal. We have a go-home show to book. A bunch of storylines. I think we're pretty much ready for most of them. I haven't quite developed all of them yet, but I think we have the foundations for a very minor pay-per-view that we're going to be going into. I think we need to start building up further for the next month, and that's really going to be our focus. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's book this show. I'll catch you guys on the flip. All right, guys, we are ready. We got another hour 30 for our go-home show for NWA Power. Tried to get everything we needed for this next pay-per-view. I think for the most part did. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have happening in this show. No pre-show elements at this point. I didn't decide to book that, but we'll probably do a whole bunch of those for our pay-per-view. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. We start the show off with Jeff Jarrett coming out and cutting a promo. Doesn't do very well. Part of it had to do with just not enough interesting things happening in it. Probably had it set wrong, unfortunately. But Jeff Jarrett cuts a promo, says that Pillman Jr. is yesterday's news, and if he really wants to be back in this company, he's willing to offer him a contract to work at the bottom. But he first has to prove his worth, and that's why he has to face a machine tonight to get back. So we set up a pay-per-view, or not a pay-per-view, but a main event match with Cage and Pillman, even though I think the contract signing is actually the main event. But this is our sort of actual main match. So again, Pillman's face turn, not getting a great reaction here. We have a pretty okay match. Again, anything that's in the green is pretty much okay with us, but we're really shooting for 50 or higher. So it's not amazing, but it's fine. Enzo and Cass defeat the Dawson brothers in 9 minutes. Big Cass pins Dave Dawson with a bada boom, shaka laka. It was poorly paced. The crowd was already hot, apparently, from that from that intro. So even though it was an underwhelming segment, they were still hot from it. They just wanted to see Brian Cage, apparently. Overall, they're all about evenly matched, 45, 46, 44, 41. So again, a 40, it's lower than what we would expect from this match, but considering we got our penalties, it makes sense. But we weren't going to get much higher anyways. What does get a lot higher is this good segment here between Max Caster, Anthony Bowens, Enzo, and Big Cass. Enzo and Kaz celebrate their win. They're about to hit the mic to kind of do their usual post-match hype up, but then they're interrupted by the Acclaimed, who come to the ring. Obviously, they've been getting hot for the last 2 weeks with very similar personalities and clearly clashing over this. Max Caster dishes onto them, giving them some dirt and calling them washed-out rejects with egos bigger than their actual skills can back up. Enzo and Big Cass obviously looking a little hot from this and getting upset at the words. There's some words exchanged back and forth. Max ends up hitting a line that springs forward the entire chain of events, saying that that two of them ultimately are just destined to have the letters F, K, A next to their names as they pay their bills sitting next to Virgil at a convention center in Milwaukee. So the idea that they're just sort of already done, they're on a downswing, pisses them off. They get closer and closer to each other until eventually Enzo and Kaz nod at each other during their back and forth, and they attack the Acclaim, leading to a full brawl in which they all kind of disperse. No one clearly got the better of it. Bowens was a decent match for Kaz, and Caster and Enzo kind of paired off, and it seemed like everyone just slugged it out and kind of moved out. We got the Realest Guys in the Room storyline advancing. Everybody came off very well. All the improvisation went very well, and ended up doing pretty good for the 51 here. A squash match does okay as well. As Ramona Riot versus Daniela Kamala. Ramona Riot defeated her in 2 minutes, 45 seconds with a Heidi Ho, and it was a chaotic match, which helped hide how badly Danielle was performing. Local jobber that we're clearly not going to bring back in again. She had a 27, got the crowd buzzing, which is very good. We have a recap for some type of, that's just for her segment, whatever. All right, afterwards though, Ramona Riot cuts a scathing promo. This is the night of promos and beatdowns because this is her go home. So obviously she's been getting into this feud with Mickie James, and she talks about how all her life she's had to fight 10 times harder because she didn't look like everybody else in training in the locker room. Mickie James, though, never had to really fight for anything. She says that ultimately history will see her as a no-talent, parasitic grifter who gets paraded around as one of the few good ones for merely being competent in a time of porn stars and failed models. This attack gets Mickie James very hot and comes out with a mic looking to dish more dirt at Ramona. Ramona does not care and instead does a tope suicida at Mickie James, levels her out, and starting a full attack, which ends up being broken up by staff. So we lead into this event, this Impact Knockouts Champion versus NWA Women's Championship match, and did not advance the storyline with heat, but we did advance it. It gets a 48, which is okay. Oh boy, this did poorly. We have a vignette for our next pay-per-view teasing a new signing. Unfortunately, it doesn't go that well. We have a trophy case in screen as the camera slowly pans across it. We see various collegiate sports memorabilia, signed football, various wrestling medals, a throwing axe. A lot of these things are signed or have photos next to them of historical people. Seems like there's a legacy in this trophy case. And we hear about that legacy as a voice says, as the screen pans across accolades. And the voice says, legacy isn't something you are granted at birth. It's not a privilege that holds you up. It's a burden you fight for. A bar that has been set that you must rise to overcome or falter upon its weight. It's not about the greatness you've come from. It's about the greatness you can become if you are ready. And we see a reflection of Curtis Axel in the glass. And I'm ready, he says. And we see a much more serious Curtis Axel, a third-generation wrestler, coming and assuming a new title, Axel Henning. Axel Perfect Henning. We see that name is coming soon, presumably at the next pay-per-view. And so we debut Curtis Axel, a wrestler that never really got his fair shake, person of immense legacy that never really lived up to it when he was in the spotlight, looking maybe for NWA to provide him that re-humbling of beginnings and a new lease on life. And thus he's assumed his original surname and a new first name. That, I mean, I will say that in terms of naming, it's one of the few good WWE names. It was actually linked back to, obviously, Kurt Hennig, to his grandfather, who I think was the Axe, Larry the Axe Hennig, right? So we have Mr. Perfect, the Axe, combining both of them, but we've kind of reconfigured that. He gets a great rating for his debuted gimmick. Unfortunately, the segment itself does just fine. It's actually a kind of underperformer. Hopefully, his match at the pay-per-view can do a little bit better for us. Cool. I should have scripted that. This was a 3-minute video. It did not go well. Phillips interviews Megabyte Ronnie at the stage, saying he's ready for any challenge. He's going into the ring tonight. It doesn't do well at all. 25, very bad. Thankfully, this match is better, though Megabyte Ronnie not really the one that propping it up, let's say. Megabyte is defeated in 10 minutes by stoppage after he fights Chris Hero, and of course Chris Hero injures him, and Ronnie's unable to continue the match. Megabyte is hurt on the ground, and Hero continues his reign of hurting wrestlers, ends up dislocating Ronnie's arm with an armbar. Medical rushes to his aid, and Chris Hero takes a few cheap shots at Ronnie as medics are trying to take care of him, clearly reveling in his punishment. This prompts a surprise jump from Tim Storm Jr., who runs out to attack Chris Hero. Obviously, Tim Storm Jr. was previously an injured opponent by Chris Hero. He's all fired up. Tim Storm Jr. Gets a few good hits on him, ends up sending him reeling out of the ring. Smiling, though, as he tends to his broken lip, blood kind of dripping out of his mouth. Clearly is ready for more. Tim Storm Jr. maybe not ready for what's about to happen to him. He comes to fend off the defenseless. This segment, though, does very poorly. It's just not very good. We have a 4-way elimination match. This is we call the NWA Four Corners match, next gen Four Corners match. This is for the opportunity at the next pay-per-view to challenge for the next gen championship. Ricky Starks defeats everybody. Though there was supposed to be some, and it did not show up in here, some managerial shenanigans with Jeff Jarrett eating him, but ultimately is able to defeat everybody. And does very well for himself. He has 62. Everybody else at a 53. King Mo lagging behind at a 31. Got the crowd buzzing. Gave us a 50. Afterwards, we have a really good square off where Ricky Starks has announced that he's going to challenge for the NWA Next Gen Global. Oh boy, what's the full name of this? The NWA Global Force Wrestling next gen championship, which is always up whenever the wrestler is wrestling, if he ever gets pinned in any match, obviously. But Johnny Power, currently holding it, comes out to square off on the two. We get a cheap pop as the two fans are really excited to see these two go at it at our next pay-per-view, and the segment does fantastic. Assuming the match will be fantastic as well. We have our main event, which, what the hell happened here with a 35? What morale for Pillman? Bad odd face heel combination. Boy, we just got a whole host. The crowd did not buy this match. What should have been an okay match does very poorly. Brian Cage loses. I think we lose. I think the viewers lose on this one. Pillman Jr. does defeat Cage in 10 minutes with a roll up, able to kind of preserve Brian Cage a little bit. Man, what a bad reaction. We might just have to go ahead and I think Pillman needs to be a face, but I don't know. Boy, that was rough. Saving us is a pretty good contract signing. Very traditional, ends in a brawl. Surprise. And Ron Killings and East Austin are signed for the main event at our next pay-per-view, Down But Not Out. Oh man, I'm afraid to look at this. 45. We actually lost popularity. What a bad show. Some unexpected poor things, but you know, it's fine. Our actual pay-per-view is going to be pretty good. We also have to look at our production. It looks like we got dinged a bit from some of the production costs. We'll have to see if that's financially viable to be able to push those up, because I don't like having more than like 2 giving us dings. So I think we lose 3 points per at a maximum of 10. So I'd not want to lose 10 points in just perception. That would be bad. Someone might know the specifics. I remember it, but I kind of forgot now. But man, bad show. All right, we got a pay raise request. That is fine. We'll take the morale bump. Absolutely. Because and Penna having problems recently. Deonna Purrazzo is pregnant. She's going to start maternity leave in 1 month. Interesting. Those are some wrinkles that we're going to have to deal with. Unfortunately, Power was that it was overall good, but not great for us, unfortunately. But we have our next event. We have the Down But Not Out to put on, so that hopefully should be good. We'll see. But anyways, that was a weird up and down show for us. Thank you guys for joining me. And I'll catch you guys next time for another episode of Billy Corgan's NWA.